Well, good evening, YouTube Model Railroader fans. I'm Ray. Back at it again. Happy Valentine's Day. If you haven't seen, this is the second video I've done for the day. I actually uploaded one a few minutes ago called Boeville and Newtown Special Train Ops. It's actually goes through some of the sets that I've got. Something I hadn't done yet was I'd taken pictures of most of the stuff. I've actually taken pictures of the special train sets, but I didn't have them running. Unfortunately, I found some issues, which are noted in that video. Some things I'm going to have to go back and play around with, take a look at, so on and so forth. So, but, couple things. As I shake the living heck out of the camera. Couple of things. Got our first snowfall of the year. This year. Not the season, but this year. I call it a snowfall because we've actually got a couple of inches sitting out there for a change instead of the ice that we had earlier in the week. That was fun. You know, nothing like an ice skating rink. Give me snow any day of the week. I don't care how much snow. Just give me snow. You can keep the ice. The only ice I want to see is in a drink. But at any rate, some things that have come up this week. I actually did get a chance to go through. I gotta stop hitting the table. I actually did get a chance to go through and take a look at some of the other videos from some of the other folks besides Derek's. Which is another story. We'll get to that in a minute. Started going through some of the other folks, or looking through some of the other folks' stuff. Actually went through and saw a fellow by the name that goes by the YouTube name of Model Railer. If you've ever seen some of his, I thought my videos had a little bit of comedy in them. His have got some comedy to them too. And him and I have seems like him and I have a common plateau here with the fact that we're running stuff that's, 30, 40 years old. So, in fact, he was the one when I mentioned about showed some of the stuff that he had, and I talked about the fact that I had a couple of interesting sets. I said, I'll have to pull them out and run them now. I was just going to take pictures of them. The heck with that, I'll pull them out and run them. Like I said, I did get a chance to go through, and I've left some comments, left some feedback on a couple of the sites, some things that people were doing, or I talked about doing, some things that I saw. I'm kind of getting to that point now where I'm feeling really comfortable within the group, which is cool, I guess. Now, of course, if I'm overstepping my boundaries, please somebody reach through the camera and go, stop it. But no, in all seriousness, I'm starting to get to the point where, some of the folks are asking questions. I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that before. Oh yeah, I've had that. And that's what it's all about. And in fact, somebody brought it up the other night, about the group, and I've been on here since December 22nd, I think it was, of last year, and it's really amazing to me. Here it is, not quite 2 months later, and I've got 31 subscriptions and almost 500 views. I wish it were 5,000. Not quite that good. Not that good yet. I do absolutely appreciate everybody coming in, checking out, subscribing, leaving their comments. It makes me feel good. Just a little short story real quick, and I'm going to get into some other things, but just a short story. Years ago, I was on and I'm not going to mention the site, because that's not right, that's not me. But I was on a particular site, and it wasn't video, it was basically just a message board. And, I threw up a couple pictures of what I had, and I immediately got blasted for some of the things that I did, and I'm like, really? Seriously? You guys weren't wearing the same shoes that I'm wearing at one point? Come on. A little bit of constructive criticism is nice, but to sit there and flat out say you suck, it wasn't nice. And that's basically the way it felt to me. I mean, it may not have been that quite that bad, but that's the way they were making it look, and it's like, really? So, needless to say, I'm been done with that one for a long time. And just looking through what we've got here, though, this is a completely different group. I mean, and I mentioned it the other night or made that comment the other night. And of course, I'm a big fan of The Deadliest Catch, so you'll hear this, maybe you hear this from time to time, but the neat thing with this group is the fact that we've got greenhorns, new guys, newbies, all the way up to the 50-plus year vets that have been in the hobby that long, So there's a lot of experience and there's a lot of knowledge sitting out there. And it's one of the things that I mentioned before, too, is the fact, in fact, I think it was the last, or the vlog beforehand, about, that's what this hobby is all about. We're here we're a, I hate to put it this way, but we're a unique group. We really are. We've got a hands-on hobby that's animated, that isn't on a computer screen. And I felt at one point in time it was becoming a dying art, but from what I'm seeing now, maybe it's not. Maybe it's making a comeback, and that's great. And I see it from the group that we've got here that, you know what, we've got something really nice going on here. We've got a bunch of guys and gals that are not afraid to sit there and put their necks out and go, you know what, you need to try it this way. That's cool, but maybe you ought to rethink that. That's really neat. I think I'm going to try that. That kind of stuff. There's none of this. What the heck are you doing? There is none of that, which is cool. That's great. So, anyway, one of the other things that came up on one of the messages this week was one of the fellows that asked, and I think he might be somewhat new to the group, but he asked, what do you model? Where do you model? Or what railroads do you model, and why? Fair question. And it got me to thinking, and gives you guys a little bit more background to this beast off to my right. My railroad, the Boeville in Newtown, I've always considered a bridge route that linked two major cities, somewhat major cities on the East Coast, namely Richmond, Virginia, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The neat thing of it is when I first came up with the idea for this railroad, I knew those two places existed. I'd never been there. Never been there. So, and now I've been to both. Go figure. But I saw it as a branch line or a bridge route between those two cities that was not only a freight line, but also had passenger service. And I want to model somewhere between 1950 and 1970. Now, that's a 20-year gap. I get it. There's a little bit of reasoning behind that. 1950, or around that time, is when this layout was originally started by my grandfather. I was born in 1970. The neat thing of it is it gives me the ability to run a couple different style diesels, and just like one of the videos that I remember seeing years ago, you never really lock in. To a point you want to lock in, but you don't have to lock in. Case in point, I like to run passenger trains. I hate Amtrak. I don't like Amtrak. So I still run normal passenger trains. I also like to run steam locomotives. Well, by the time 1950 hit, most of the steam locomotives were either done or they were on their way out. Still, I like to run steam locomotives, so I'm kind of stretching that era a little bit. And that's one of the neat things, I guess, about doing a bridge route, something that's fictitious. You can kind of stretch things just a little bit, make it a little bit more you. Now, here's something else that's actually kind of funny. I based a railroad off of family history. Boeville is actually a play on my last name, if you hadn't figured that one out. My mother's maiden name the town of Newtown is actually a play on her maiden name. Wykert Hill was her grandfather. That was his last name. And I had actually done some other things. New Bolscheid. For those who aren't familiar, there's actually a town over in Germany called Bolscheid. Well, when a buddy of mine gave me the houses that are actually over there, I looked at them and went, man, these look like the houses I saw when I was over in Germany. Bingo. New Bolscheid, which represents my wife's side of the family. Now, when I expand the layout, I've got a plan for a house that was that's actually out here in Maryland. It's actually off of Glenarm Road. I don't know if anybody's really familiar. Here again, I don't know if there's anybody really local, but there's a big house that sits across from what used to be the Cloverland Dairy Farm. That house belonged to my wife's grandparents. So I've been, unfortunately, they've done and passed away, and the house has been sold and so on and so forth. But I made up plans to make a house that looks real similar to that, and I'm going to put that on the layout. So I'm going off of family history. Another piece to this. My grandfather graduated from a school called Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, or BPI. Their school colors were blue and orange. My father and I graduated from a place called City College, or Baltimore City College, BCC, which is actually a high school, but it held on to its college name from 1839 when the school was founded. Its school colors were black and orange. My two brothers both graduated from a high school called Perry Hall High. Their colors were blue and yellow. Well, lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, when I came up with a color scheme for the Boeville and Newtown, it looks pretty close to the chassis system. The only difference is how it actually plays out on this particular locomotive. You know, you get a navy blue top, which could actually be conceived as black, and then you've got the orange, the yellow, and more orange, and then of course the bottom is black. So, you know, there's the colors. Well, if you look at the Boeville and Newtown locomotive that I made, black top, yellow stripe, orange stripe, blue bottom. So, there's another tie-in. I realize the chassis system, it's one of the things that I haven't really looked at. I've looked into it. I'm sure I've looked into it. I just don't remember the dates, but it's going to be around that same 1950, 1970 time frame. Might be a little outside of that, but there's nothing saying it couldn't have happened a little bit earlier. Here again, I'm freelancing. There's nothing on this layout that actually points to any specific place, and in fact, the two major towns that it ties to aren't even modeled. So, there you go. So I'm not going to get to what I really wanted to get to tonight, but because that was something else that came up, was the car card system and waybills. Now, I don't have the waybills yet because I don't actually have a way of doing 4-cycle yet, but I do have the car cards. And I do have the 4-cycle waybills, but like I said, with the way my railroad's set up, I don't need them yet. So what I've got is you've got the cards for the cars, and the last one here actually happens to be the caboose. And then there's a locomotive pocket that tells you what the road name is, what type of locomotive it is, and what its road number is. So that's how I'm working. That's how I'm working mine. And then I have the switch lists, which this all came from David Pop from Model Railroader. It was a special edition DVD, and for his Naugatuck Valley, which is a branch line off of the New Haven, it was actually a part of the DVD. So that's where I pulled those from. And I'm sure that there's other places you can get them and so on and so forth, but I thought that was pretty cool, and like I said, once I go ahead and actually get the new railroad built, I will be able to use the 4-cycle. So we'll see how that plays out. Since we're about ready to hit the 15-minute mark here, and I'm trying to keep these at 15 minutes or less, I think what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go ahead and do my normal thing. It's become sort of my catchphrase now for the ending of my videos, and I'm going to hold on to it. But you all know the deal. Wait for the highball. Green tracks ahead. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.